This week is one of the unusual weeks when the House and the Senate schedule is a little bit out of sync. So the House of Representatives is on a district work period, but the Senate is in session. There'll be continuing consideration of the Iran nuclear agreement, and later this week they'll take a vote on the budget conference report. So this will be the first time in several years that Congress, both houses, have agreed on a budget. Only one hearing of note since the House is out. On Thursday, the Senate Judiciary Committee will have a hearing on patent reform legislation. We'll be filing a letter for that hearing, and it'll be on our website when it goes up to the committee. Before the House recessed last week, Representatives Randy Neugebauer of Texas and John Carney of Delaware introduced the Data Protection Act. This legislation is a big deal for credit unions. It's been 16 months since the Target data breach. This is the first time that we've seen legislation that achieves most of the principles we laid out on data security. Importantly, it would hold those that accept cards for payment to similar standards as those that issue cards. It makes a lot of sense. The merchants that accept the cards for payments ought to be held to that same standard as the credit unions that issue those cards. So we're really excited about this legislation. We've gotten to this point because of the work we've done over the last 16 months, meeting with members of Congress, encouraging them through the Stop the Data Breach campaign. And now we're at a really important point where we need credit unions, their members, and other consumers to continue to send that message, stop the data breach, which is why we issued an action alert this week asking folks to weigh in with Congress in support of Representative Neugebauer and Representative Carney's Data Protection Act. This bill is a companion piece to the Carper-Blunt bill that was introduced several weeks ago. We'd like to see them both move, and we need folks to take action. Before the House went into recess, there were two other pieces of legislation of interest to credit unions introduced. Representatives Lynn Westmoreland and Carolyn Maloney introduced the Examination Fairness Bill. This bill's essentially identical to legislation they've introduced in the past. It sets up an independent ombudsman and an independent appeals process for examination disputes, so that if credit unions have concerns about the conduct of their examiners or the decisions that are made in those exams, they're not appealing it up through the NCUA, they'd appeal it through this independent commission. We've supported this legislation for several Congresses, we've testified on it. We're very happy to see it reintroduced this Congress, and we encourage the House to pass it. The second bill deals with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau's TILA-RESPA integrated disclosure requirements. In August, there are going to be new forms that credit unions and other lenders are going to have to use when they offer mortgages. After several years, they finally combine the TILA and RESPA form. The problem is, as with any new rule, implementation is tricky. And what we've asked Congress, and frankly, we've also asked the CFPB, is to delay enforcement action, delay the private right of action that's associated with these rules until the end of the year, so that credit unions and other lenders can work out the kinks. The CFPB hasn't been willing to do that just yet. We're quickly approaching the implementation deadline, which is in August. So Representative Steve Pierce from New Mexico and Brad Sherman from California have introduced legislation to delay enforcement action, delay the private right of action until the end of the year, so that the implementation of this rule can go a little bit more smoothly. We're strongly supportive of this legislation, and we encourage Congress to enact it.